Here we are once again, yet with another weekly episode of All Out, and we are at episode 16. Now, in this week's episode, it's a kind of laid back episode compared to the last two episodes that we got. It was lighter in tone. Now, we have an official appearance of Coach Komori's wife, Yumi-chan. But before I get into who she is, this episode starts off where it's their day off. So everyone is doing their own thing, whether it's like staying at home, eating out with their friends, visiting a shrine, at the DVD store, in the adults corner, you name it. So we have where Seki-san and Hachioji are actually going to Coach Komori's to have lunch, and they end up bumping into their manager and the manager of Keijo. Gion, on the other hand, he wants to go train because they are one day away from going to Sugadaira. So remember, when they go to Sugadaira, there is a training camp for all the rugby teams within the high school division, and their team is going there to face against all these other schools. Of course, there's no official matches, but this will give us a chance to see where they are on the playing field and how far they have come since they have been taken under the tutelage of Coach Komori. So once Gion has gone training, he dragged poor Sumiyaki with him. Once he was finished training, actually reading books on rugby, he bumps into Seki-san and Hachioji, and he overhears them talking about how they're going to Coach Komori for lunch. And he kind of finds it unfair that he wasn't invited, and they still tell him, no, you can't come. So the funny part was Gion hatched a plan, and that was to call the entire team and tell them, the coach invited them to his house to go have lunch, when the coach has no idea, aside from Seki-san and Hachioji, he has no idea the rest of the team is coming. So you can imagine his surprise when he opened his front door and sees the entire team there, only thinking that possibly two of them was supposed to come. Now, that's when we were officially introduced to Yumi-chan, his wife. And when you see this episode, and then you remember back to episode 14 with that flashback on like when they were at the doctor's and they were told that Yumi-chan is unable to give birth to a child, she was infertile, it kind of warms your heart in this week's episode, because for many years, even till now, even though it has passed by and everything, and you would suppose they moved on, and you go back to what Coach Komori is saying back in that episode 14, and you go back to him saying he feels like he has his own kids, paraphrasing, he's like, he feels like he has his own kids, and how Yumi-chan has always wanted kids as well. And you can just imagine the burden that she had, feeling like she was a failure as both a wife and someone that could have brought joy into their life, being a mother. She could have been a potential mother but was unable to. She must have felt that pressure on her, that burden. And now to see the team before her, brought a lot of joy to her, and you felt really happy for her, because in this episode you see like she is the most cutest thing ever. You saw how she was just completely spoiling the Jinko boys, even to the funny parts where her husband has to try and stop her from overdoing it. It just goes to show how long she has wanted to have children in her house. And then when you see it, that this house that they bought, how big it must have been for both of them, and now they have like 30 children in their house, it seems quite small, and it's like it puts a smile on their face. So everyone is having fun at Coach Komori's. They're eating, chatting, just having a good old time before they go off for the next day to go to Sugadaira. So there was a prep talk that Coach Komori gave to them to prepare them for their journey for the next day. And that prep talk kind of said along the lines that before the game even starts, it's already finished for rugby. The end is already concluded, and that a well-prepared team is the one that always wins versus an unprepared team. And he goes to ask the team, are you a losing team? And they respond no. Because when you compare now to what they were the very first episode, and within their timeline, 3 to 4 months have passed, and with them being under the tutelage of Coach Komori, you saw how much they have progressed. Yes, they have lost to Keijo. Yes, they have lost to Segami, but you saw how much they have improved. And I can't wait for next week's episode when we see them at the training camp and see how well they have come, like how far they have come from the very first episode till now, and see how they do against other rugby teams within the high school division. Of course, you can expect Segami, Keijo, Ryojin, and possibly other schools that we have not seen. Also, the opening kind of gave us a spoiler, so you can expect them to go against that team. We will get an official name for them, and then the characters that's in that team. So I cannot wait for next week's episode. I really enjoyed this week's episode because it was very light in manner, and Yumi-chan is a blessing to the team, and I cannot wait for future episodes where we can see her interacting more with the team. And I can definitely say she is the #1 fan of Jinko. She is their cheerleader, and she's going to always be rooting for them. So that was basically it. This week's episode was actually just a very chill, laid back one, and the excitement is for next week and further on. So if you saw this week's episode of All Out, do drop a comment down below and tell me how you felt about this week's episode. What are your expectations for next week's episode? Are you hyped that we're finally get to see games once again? Not that I didn't mind seeing some of these episodes where we actually fleshed out several of our characters, which I found to be very interesting, and actually a very good point that this show has done, which is, try to give more depth to the characters that's in this show. So that's also a plus for All Out. And the links are in the description box as always. You guys can go check that out. And I'm Yumi-chan of Anime Legends Podcast. And I will see you guys later. Bye!